What's happening, everybody? It's NCAA Tournament Week. Jay Busbee, Kevin Kaduk, the latest Grandstanding. Kevin, our podcast last Monday, God, the week is already blowing by. It's all happening at once. It's our greatest podcast by far of our four so far, was Eisenberg's bracket podcast. So I say NCAA Tournament every week.
This one, I think the fifth one might be even better. Today we have Jamal Mashburn and Bo Kimble from Loyola Marymount, that Loyola Marymount team. It's pretty cool to have both of them on a supersized March Madness edition of Grandstanding.
Yeah, not together. That would be cool, though, to get the two of them together in their prime, one-on-one. Sit back and watch that.
Can I say that Jamal Mashburn and Bo Kimble might have like the two best basketball names of all time?
Yeah, exactly. You know exactly who you're talking about, and it rolls right off the tongue. You can hear
Jamal Mashburn, right? Great name, strong sounding. He was a strong player, a lot of fun to watch. And then Bo Kimble, I mean, the guy's iconic. Only played a few years in the league, but is still remembered 25 years later after Loyola Marymount. Just because of what he did for the memory of his friend Hank Gather. So we talked to him a lot about that and his plans to actually get back into coaching with Loyola Marymount. But I think first we probably have to do the Jamal Mashburn interview, just because Kentucky is the story of this tournament. When it tips off tomorrow on Thursday, it's going to be Kentucky. Can they win the 6 games to go undefeated? First team to do it since Indiana in 1976. And we just asked Jamal, are the Wildcats a team to finally break that streak?
I got to be honest, I was surprised that he picked Duke to go all the way.
People are going to have to listen. So
there you go. Yeah, here's Jamal Mashburn first. I got a good idea who you're picking in your bracket this year, but is there any way that Kentucky could lose?
There's a possibility. I mean, the game's got to be played. I think Wisconsin and Arizona have a good chance, but they have to play. They have to play not their perfect game, but they have to play above their level and sustain it for the course of the game in order to beat them. I think Kentucky has a greater ceiling, and I don't think Wisconsin can match them. So Kentucky has to play down, and Wisconsin and Arizona have to play way up, consistently.
Hey, Jamal, I thought maybe the one thing that might down Kentucky this year is just themselves, because, as you know, Kentucky is probably the most pressure-filled place to play college basketball, because you're not only competing against the rest of the country, you're competing against legendary teams like the one that you played on and even before you guys. Can you talk a little bit about that pressure of playing in Lexington and what it means to play Kentucky basketball?
Yeah, there is a lot of pressure, but the one thing that I think holds true to form is the coach that I played for, Rick Pitino, and then you can also bring in there Calipari, who's coaching this current crop, is they take a lot of pressure off the kids by diverting a lot of attention towards themselves. I mean, that's one of the reasons why you have to be sort of a salesman and a marketing guru and not just a coach that just talks about X's and O's when you're at the helm of the University of Kentucky program, because you have to engage your fan base, and they want more and more and more, and they want to get to know the players, and there's a high expectation. So you have to have something that the fans can gravitate to, because you're dealing with 17 to 20-year-old kids, and you're going to have ebbs and flows on how they're going to deal with situations. So the stabling force there has to be the coach, and he has to be charismatic. He has to be engaging, and I think Calipari does an outstanding job doing that. And with that being said, you learn a lot by being a part of that particular program, by the media attention, the interview requests. So these guys, even though some of them are freshmen that play an integral role in going into undefeated season, these guys are tournament ready. They're not going to see anything that they haven't seen or experience anything that they haven't experienced as far as coverage, as far as requests of media, constraints on their time. So they've been through the fire, and that's the one good thing about being a part of University of Kentucky. And even when you get to the pro level, you're sort of used to the attention, and you know how to deal with it at many levels.
How do you feel like you handled that? Were you able to handle that pressure well enough, or do you look back and did you have any unfortunate quotes you'd like to take back?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think I handled it really well. I only answered things that I knew about. I think I kept it real consistent and real simple. So I wasn't deviating in areas that I had no experience in, and I think it prepared me for the professional level. You get asked a lot of questions. You go to restaurants, people want your autograph. You have to remain on, as they say, throughout the course of the day. And even while you're in class, people are looking at you. And I think it's a little bit tougher now with social media, the use of cell phones and how people take pictures and take videos. So I think these kids have done an outstanding job of being able to navigate the waters with the hype coming in and also where the program stands at to this day.
Well, Kentucky, of course, is in that unique situation where they're really the only show in the state. Of course, there's Louisville basketball, but there's no professional sports other than across the river in Cincinnati. So it's I admire those kids for putting up with what they deal with because, like you said, that social media stuff is crazy. I know a lot of people have probably been asking you this, and I'd like to know your answer for our listeners. What would your team, Kentucky team, do against this Kentucky team?
I think we would match up well. I mean, depending upon what team you're talking about, if it's the 92 team that faced Duke, we would have some difficulties because of the size, the interior size of it. If you're talking about my 93 team that went to the Final Four and lost to the Fab Five, I think we match up a little bit better, but we would still have difficulty dealing with that interior size. Mm-hmm. The size of the guards would be a challenge for Travis Ford on that 93 team. I still say I would be a difficult matchup for any of those for that team at the power forward, small forward spot. But as a former competitor, I don't think it ever leaves you that you think your team could beat that team. So so I think we could hold our own on that, but their size would be difficult, to match up against. And I kind of equate this team to the Fab Five, but deeper. The Michigan Fab Five, but a lot deeper, and probably without that the swagger that the Fab Five had that caused that. I would say when they faced up against some team, the intimidation factor. Mm-hmm. You look at Karl Anthony Towns, you can probably equate him to Chris Webber. You look at one of the Andrew Harrison kids, Andrew Harrison, you probably Jalen Rose based on size. You got your Jimmy Kings and you got your Ray Jackson. Juwan Howard is probably a mix of Anthony Towns, but Willie Cauley-Stein is probably the anomaly. There's not too many guys 7 feet tall who can guard the perimeter and then also guard interior and very quick on his feet. So they got a special team. They got a special team. It's unfortunate that you can't see these kids stay and see if there will be a dynasty created. If they win a national championship, how long can the O stay on their record? So, but that's a part of the nature of the game and the nature of the beast. And kudos to them for dealing with all the stuff they have to deal with and their perseverance and camaraderie and selflessness towards one another.
You mentioned the fact that the kids may not stay around that long, and obviously that's the knock on Kentucky right now. Is that it's a one and done school, a very good one and done school, but a lot of kids just coming through for 1 year. You turned pro after your junior year. Did you have a tough decision to make then? Would you have been ready to turn pro after 1 year? What would your thought process be back then?
I wasn't ready, and at that particular time to lead my freshman year. Probably was ready after my sophomore year, but I'm glad I stayed in my junior year. Me and Coach DePino had a conversation when he first recruited me that he would be honest with me when it's my time to turn pro. And one of the tipping points was when I faced up against the Dream Team before the summer before my junior year. I was part of the college select team, and he called me in my office after I participated in that and said, "It's your time to leave." So I announced before my junior year that I was going to be turning pro. So they treated it as a senior year for me. But I have no problems with the kids wanting to turn pro out of high school. I think it's, if they want to and they're ready, go ahead and go and test your dream. At that particular point, there's no guarantee that you're going to make it. There's no guarantees in life, essentially. Most people look at failure if you don't make the NBA, but I've seen a lot of guys have a long career, make a lot of money playing overseas basketball. So just because you're not an NBA player and you may not be ready, and it might not be the smartest decision for all guys, but at least give them the opportunity. And if you want to come back or you want to go to college, it's their choice. There's just so much money involved at this particular time, especially during March Madness. I remember when there was just one network covering it. Now you have two, Turner. So, I mean, the economics have changed, and the sponsorships dollars have changed. The ad revenue has changed. And I think the college player needs to be represented or have some representative to sit at the table to divvy up that pie. And I'm not just saying that they should have the majority of the pie, but they at least should have representation on how things are done. So they have no voice at the table, but they are providing the entertainment and utilizing the NCAA platform. So I still think there needs to be some sort of partnership worked out going forward if you don't want to treat them as employees and keep them under the student-athlete banner.
Ed O'Bannon is the face of that movement as a former player. Are you involved with that side of it at all?
No, I'm not involved with it at all. I have my feelings on it. I mean, I get the whole argument. I stay away from it. I express my feelings. I do think kids should be able to utilize their likenesses, but I think there needs to be rules in place. I don't like the fact that, you have to stay somewhere for a long period of time when the coaches don't have to stay and there's no penalty for them for leaving. I think it's just a little bit of an unfair system. I think systems need to evolve over a period of time, and I think the NCAA system, at least for college basketball, hasn't evolved at the appropriate pace. And I think the NBA plays a part in it as well. I think there's something to be said about kids going to college from a marketing standpoint, that people get to know them, at least on the national scene, that they can utilize that platform, and it benefits the NBA in a large regard. If they come from high school, they're pretty much unknown, but the argument can be made with social media, and we're seeing people, in high school getting 100,000 views on their webpage based upon how they dunk. Who's to say that people don't know them already? So, I mean, things have changed, and I think the NCAA has just been slow to react. And I think also the players haven't had a voice at the table. And I've always made the argument, especially at the NBA level, the players don't get a chance to vote, have a say on all-star teams. Even though that's a fan event, players don't have a vote on MVP awards. I'm not saying give them the whole vote, but I think the NBA players know who the MVP is, or should be able to vote because they play against these guys. But, there's just been this mantra where the players don't have a voice, and it's unfortunate at the college level that they don't. And, it's also a part of the education and being in the real world, and I thought that's what the university campus is supposed to be about, not just book education, but also the non-traditional form of education as well.
Sure. Were you able to watch I Hate Christian Laettner the other night on ESPN?
Yeah, I watched it. I found it interesting.
The next question is, do you hate Christian Laettner?
No, I do not hate Christian Laettner, and I was a little bit blown away by the title and that you can put yourself out there that people hate you. I think they did a good job of explaining it, of the perception of Duke basketball, and obviously they've done a lot to increase that perception of it. And Christian Laettner, I got to know him quite a bit as a NBA player. Playing against him, my careers obviously crossed paths, and he was more of a introverted guy, not the same guy that people saw, the arrogant guy on the court. And also when you get a chance to compete against somebody and you gain a level of respect by how they play, and you're linked in a lot of ways. So I can understand why Kentucky fans hate him, but as a competitor and a guy that's seen him up close and personal and interact with him, I don't have that level of animosity towards him. One of my good friends is Grant Hill, And, we talk on occasion, and I see Kristen Layton out and about sometimes, mostly at Final Fours nowadays. Mm-hmm. And I have I wish he would have went. I wish he didn't make the shot, the course of history of the game, but that Duke Kentucky game. But, he's all good with me. I think he's embraced it nowadays more than he did in the past. And I think he was somewhat misunderstood, and by his own doing as well, So and I think he's trying to change that perception of himself nowadays. But I thought it was a good piece.
I know our time is limited with you, and I could talk 90s basketball with you pretty much the rest of the afternoon, but the Miller Lite sponsorship that you're involved with, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I encourage people to obviously go and get their Miller Lite at their local store, but also Miller Lite and us have come together, and we're giving away 60 of these retro coolers, and the coolers are probably about 3 foot tall and are probably about 2 feet wide, so it has a great presence. And if you want to participate in that, follow us on Twitter at Miller Lite using hashtag MLHoopsEntry, and also it's hashtag It's Miller Time for a chance to win one of these timeless coolers. And we'll be doing this from the start of the tournament all the way up to April 6th. It's a fun one, and prepare to watch the NCAA games and watch Kentucky go all the way while sipping a Miller Lite. That's what I'll be doing. So
from a blue cooler.
Yeah, from a cooler. My wife would be upset because she'd probably have to pass me the thing out of the cooler, but it's all a part of it, So it's a good time. It's a good way. I enjoy this time of year. I'm always looking forward to the upsets, and I watch it with my son, who's 13 years old, who's a basketball player himself. So it's good for me to give him insight into the game and see it from a different perspective. And it's just a fun time. It brings across a lot of memories.
Before we let you go, who's the rest of your Final Four? We know who you've got going all the way. Who've you got the rest of your Final Four?
You know what? I don't even pick a bracket. I've never picked a bracket. People have asked me all the time, have you ever picked a bracket? I never have. And I guess, it's one of those things where I played in the NCAA tournament, and I just enjoy watching the games. I see it from a different perspective because of my past with the tournament and all the years that I played high school, college, and professional basketball. I would have to say, it would be interesting to see Arizona up against the Kentucky Wildcats. I know there's been a lot of fanfare around Gonzaga. I don't know if they have the size, and they've got a former Kentucky kid that played there, Kyle Wiltshire, so that would be an interesting storyline. I don't know if Wisconsin can match up against them, but it's also intriguing to see, and I watched some of the games last night, the playing games, and watched Ole Miss beat BYU. So I'm dialed into it, not necessarily from a bracket, filling out a bracket standpoint, but just watching these kids and the emotion and the expressions on their faces, this being their biggest platform that they can play on. So I really dig that part of it.
Best 2 sports days of the year coming right up.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Well, thanks so much, Jamal, for taking the time. We appreciate it, and good luck for Kentucky on your behalf.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thanks, Jamal.
Take care.
All right. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
You and I were emailing beforehand, and he's like the Forrest Gump of 90s basketball. I mean, he was everywhere. He was at the shot. He played in that 92 Dream Team practice, which was so great because they actually beat the Dream Team, and they were all talking trash about it. The Dream Team comes back and scores something like 22 straight points in their next game and just destroyed them. He was there during that Knicks Heat fight where Jeff Van Gundy was hanging onto Alonzo Mourning's leg. I mean, he was all over the place. So, yeah.
He was in the White House with Nixon.
Yes, exactly. Playing ping pong in China, the whole bit.
The one thing about the Leitner show to me that was just so great is how many big games Leitner played in and just the breadth of opponents that he plays. It's like, oh, here's Georgetown with Alonzo Mourning.
Right.
Oh, here he is playing UNLV. Like, it's just crazy. And you really don't get that now. And I think that's the kind of one downside of college basketball is, I mean, we've been crying about this for the last 15 years, but Anthony Davis would be a senior at Kentucky right now. And not that Anthony Davis would have been a senior in Kentucky had he entered in 1989. I mean, he would have been long gone too. But, I mean, just imagine if if it was something like that. Kentucky would somehow even be scarier, which is crazy. I think Kentucky. We can maybe. Do you want to talk a little bit about our picks here before we get into Kimble? People know I'm a Badgers fan, but I just that depth that Kentucky has, I just don't see how Wisconsin or really anyone matches up against that. Just because there's just so many different things that you have to take care of and do to beat that Kentucky team. And yeah, you might cross off one or two, but you're not going to cross out 5 or 6 or 7.
The only real reason to bet against Kentucky is one of two reasons. One, you went to a school that is a rival that's playing them along the way, as is your case. Or two, you're trying to win a bracket and you're going against the stream because you know that everybody else is going to pick Kentucky. I mean, there's just no logical reason. Duke, Arizona, Wisconsin are probably the 3 teams that have a chance to beat them, and all 3 of them have to play at their heads or above it in order to beat Kentucky.
So in our office pool, I'm doing 2 brackets: a head bracket, a heart bracket. I don't see there's any other way to do this. And so our Yahoo numbers came out, and we update them at midnight every day about what the pick distribution is, and 59% of people are picking Kentucky to win the tournament.
That's it.
Honestly, I thought that was low. I was just going to say I thought that was low.
Yeah, I think that's probably like you, because if it was you, it'd be 50% of Kevin Kaduk's picks have Kentucky winning the tournament.
Now I wonder if people are just doing the both brackets just to cover their ass, I guess.
Exactly, just double up.
Do you think it's fun? I think it's good for college basketball to have the Goliath out there.
I do too. I like having something to shoot for. I love, obviously, like you, I loved past tense having the teams that were together for 2, 3, and 4 years. The Fab Five, the UNLV, the Duke of Hurley and Leitner, so that you got used to these teams. I mean, obviously that's gone and it's not coming back. But in the absence of that, why not have a school that plays that role? And Kentucky plays it to the hilt.
Yeah. So who do you want to tell me your final 4 picks?
You know what? I still haven't made them yet, but I am taking Kentucky, Wisconsin. I'm trying to remember. I was going to go over there in the East where we talked about with Eisenberg, that crazy-ass region. You're
taking Providence?
Yeah.
He's taking Providence. I don't know. We can't let him forget that.
The funny
thing
is
he turns in a bracket that doesn't have Providence in it after telling all of our listeners that he was picking Providence. There's going to be hell to pay.
We talked him into it, basically. He said afterward that he's making his picks as he was talking, and he realized that he talked himself into Providence. So yeah, it's going to look like genius. But and on the other side, it looks tough to bet against Duke. They got that very sweet region set up for them. So it's going to be fun no matter what. I always hate it when you get a bracket that you get to the end and it's like 1-1, 2-1.
Yeah, very chalky, right?
Yeah, and you're like, oh, son of a bitch.
And those are usually the years where it's not chalky at all, right?
Right.
I've got Kentucky winning it all. I've got Wisconsin falling to them sadly again in the Final Four. Out of that East bracket, I like Virginia. I think they're going to get past some of the injury issues. I really like Tony Bennett. I think they're going to put it together. And that Duke team, I saw them up in Madison in December. And yeah, Okafor is a beast, but Tyus Jones is just such an impressive person and leader. And you saw the way that he performed against North Carolina in a couple of those games. Just a real cool, calm, and collected for a freshman especially is crazy. So I think he's going to have a huge impact. And then I think Justice Winslow is that wild card, and I think he's going to put it together. So I see Duke and Virginia coming together, all ACC on Saturday night, and I think Duke gets it done. But then Kentucky beats Duke in a pretty good final. I think it will be a good final, but I think Kentucky probably wins 81-74.
If it ends, wow, you're right down to the wire. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, if Kentucky and Duke do match up, where's that going to stack up in terms of ratings-wise? You think that's going to be the most watched in a while, or are we at the point where it's just so balkanized that people aren't going to be watching no matter what?
No, I think people will watch it because, especially if Kentucky's in there going for history. I mean, people love a storyline, and it's a Monday night. It's not going to take that much for people to tune in to see something like that. So I think that would do real well. Certainly better than a Duke or Butler, or even I don't know what the ratings were like last year, but I don't remember people being really fired up to watch UConn and Kentucky. But I think that all goes out the window if you've got Coach K versus Coach Cal.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to dial it back 25 years now, back to the olden days when they rode dinosaurs to get to each regional with Bo Kimble and.
Loyola Marymount did not ride dinosaurs, and if they did, it was like a velociraptor.
Exactly. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, they were riding velociraptors, and everyone else was on a brontosaurus or whatever. They were that. It was so much fun to watch that team, and you kind of forget what a strange sort of offense it was, and how game-changing it was in the very literal sense that no one could keep up with it. You can't prepare you can't change your entire preparation for one team, so they could just run everybody out of the gym.
This was one of those interviews where I just wanted to do a remember when, because I totally remember being on the south side of Chicago watching that game against Michigan where they put up 149 points to get to the Elite Eight, where they'd eventually fall to UNLV but still score, I think, 101 points, 104 points, something like that. And I just wanted to be like, hey, remember that? And, of course, Bo Kimble remembers that because he's probably asked about it every single day since. So this was a good interview, though.
Would you – something that happened to you 25 years ago, what if you were still being asked? Not even just about the tragedy that happened to you, but something in your life. Remember that time back in elementary school when –
Yeah, it's crazy. We didn't get too much into it with him here, but we talked about it after we did the interview. It's like it must be kind of a little bit of a weird existence for him because people meet you and – the first thing they ask is about your friend who died 25 years ago. And of course, Bo is very dedicated to Hank and has done a wonderful job of keeping his memory alive. But it's got to just be a little bit weird that you answer more questions, maybe 4 or 5 questions about somebody else upon meeting someone than actually, your own personality. So, that would be weird, like you said.
Yeah, they're frozen in time because we all see, we still see Jamal Mashburn in a Kentucky uniform or maybe a Heat uniform, and we don't see him now. All these years later, we don't see these guys as they are now. We see them as they want.
Bo Kimble's almost 50 years old, which blows my mind.
I know. It's best not to even start thinking about that kind of thing, about how long, what kind of anniversaries we've got coming up.
That means you're going to be 50 years old.
Jesus, it's coming. I know.
Let's get to the interview.
Another couple of weeks, and that'll be it. All right, here we go. Bo Kimble. What do you still remember? What sticks with you to this day about that tournament run?
Well, unfortunately, we lost a late great Hank Gathers, my buddy from high school, Dobbins Tech High School in Philadelphia. And obviously that was a huge shock to lose him. Just everything that he stood for, in regards to our team and the university and and personally. And what stands out is how our entire team really just put all of our sadness, all of our sorrow into our play. And as young men, to be able to do that and channel your energy that way was really a compliment to all of us. And the fact that, no one gave us a chance to win without Hank Gathers, and we made it to the final 8, which is almost like winning a championship for a little small Loyola. And I humbly say in the same sentence that if Hank Gathers was alive, as humbly as I could say it, is that it's pretty certain we would have won the national championship. We averaged 125 points a game. And Vegas was the closest team, and they averaged 104 that year. So the moment the ball goes up, they're down by 20. And then that's number one. And then number two, we played them in preseason, the first game of the year on ESPN. And they called a fake bomb threat, and we were on a 28-4 run. If we wasn't on it, if you didn't call a fake bomb threat, that 28-4 run could have easily been a 40-10 run. Not necessarily the score would have been the most important, but it would have been 10 or 15 sprints up and down the court to get you subjected to all the other things, the conditioning, like the rest of our opponents. So we didn't get that chance because they had a 20-minute bomb threat recess, and then 4 minutes later they had their normal halftime. So they could, so they wouldn't have been able to do that in the tournament. That trick only works once.
Did they ever figure out who called in that bomb threat?
No, and let me just say that there's no disrespect whatsoever to UNLV because they did win it. They had an amazing team, and they were, the champ.
We're coming off a college season where like 50 to 46 can be a good score for a college basketball game. Does that boggle your mind when you look at some of your scores when you guys were regularly in the triple digits?
Well, absolutely. What jumps out at me is here you have some of the most talented, most athletic, most long-sized athletes, and you got them all bottled up, and you're shutting down their abilities to run the floor, to score more, show more of their athleticism, more of their talent. Hank, in the system that we played, we were able to showcase all of our skills. Hank Adams had a chance to go coast to coast if he had to. We was here from when Hank was 6'7", and he would a couple of times went coast to coast because he had dribbling abilities. He had scoring abilities inside the paint. He had rebounding ability. He was able to forecast all of his abilities and talents, and I was able to do the same. So a lot of times when you're playing this slow offense, you may have a great shooter open on a semi-fast break, but he's programmed not to shoot. And then you run your offense and find out after 30 seconds, you still didn't even get a shot that you had that your great shooter should have took in the first 5 seconds of the offense when he was open. So, I mean, I just think it's, the game is a little boring in that aspect. There's so many different ways to win a championship. There's so many different ways, different styles of play. But the last time I checked, it's pretty certain that Loyola Marymount, the system, running gun, is the highest scoring offense in the history of the game. So, and the last time I checked, the team that scored the most wins. So so teams would have a good luck trying to play a Loyola Marymount type of team. I'm one of my dreams and aspirations is to be a Division I head coach in the NCAA. And what we've done can be duplicated. The myth about our offense is that you need a Hank Gathers and a Bo Kimble and Jeff Fryer to run it is actually the opposite. If you don't have players like that and you run this offense, now you put the focus on the strength and on the conditioning. And that becomes the biggest thing. And you can just condition your team to be the most efficient team. So, when your opponent is taking 60 shots a game and you're taking 100, well, you pretty much got a 40% chance of being in every game, but beating every game.
You don't start out running that kind of style. It's like a video game style. It was so much fun to watch. You don't start out running that kind of style, though, coming up through high school. What were you guys thinking when your coach comes in and says, all right, let's lay this down. This is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be running every single spot. What were you guys' first thoughts before you saw it in action?
Looking back at it now and just realizing how powerful it was when he was showing us at the time. I should have just got up and gave him a big hug and signed before I left the office. That's the impact of it. So Paul Westhead, the late Father Dave Hagan knew Cassie Westhead, Paul's wife, and he told us that he had won a championship with the Lakers, and he thinks that we should go give him a visit. And so when Father Dave Hagan said that, and we saw a tape, Coach showed us the tape that I tell you these guys ran up and down the court about 15 times in a row. They're shooting early. Both teams were shooting early. And I just remember I just couldn't believe that they ran up about 15, 20 times with no time out. And he said, and so I jokingly asked him, is this an edit? He said, no, this is just a typical game. And if you're a wing guy, you're expected to shoot the ball every single time you're open. And with me, ever since I was 14, I knew I was unstoppable. And just knowing that, as a young, talented, unstoppable 18-year-old, you're telling me that I can shoot the ball every time. I'm like, there's nobody that can guard me. I'm going to score a bunch. So I was scoring 30 a game growing up in high school and playing in summer leagues and things like that in a game. So I just knew that in this kind of offense, it's not going to be a problem averaging 30. Imagine what type of recruiting tool that would be when I'm the head coach. I go into an All-American home, and he's a player like Hank Gathers or a player like myself. And I say, hey, every single time you're open, you're going to be able to shoot. And you get about 20 to 30 shots a game. It's going to be very easy to build up a great talent and recruit players. And you need players to win. Yeah, Loyola was a school that wasn't on anybody's map. We just transferred along, Hank and I transferred along with Corey Gage to the already good team they already had. And it just turned out to be a magical mix of players.
Well, I'll take 30 shots a game. I won't make any of them, but I'll gladly take them.
But it's a dream come true to be able to play in that style of offense and be in college and get your education. I mean, it's almost like, you don't want to wake up from your dream. It's just so extraordinary to be able to play that style of offense and have a chance to make it to the NBA.
Loyola hasn't made the tournament since you guys did make that run. Do they need to get back to maybe not a run and gun offense, but look outside the box and do things differently? Is that something a school like Loyola has to do to be successful and kind of get back into the mix of things?
Well, I'll let their record speak for itself. I can't imagine any alumni being happy with the last 25 years. But I will say that I've made it public that I've tried to get the head coaching job over 3 times over the last 8 years. And if and when I get my opportunity, whether it's at Loyola or anywhere else, they would benefit greatly by something that Loyola already built. People think of Loyola Marymount, they think of our team running gun, fast break, scoring, breaking records. Why they wouldn't want that, for the life of me, I don't understand. But I'm a diehard USC alumni. I'm a diehard Loyola Marymount alumni. So, but I'm definitely not happy with the last 25 years, but I guarantee you not one alumni is as well. They do need to do something different because what they've been doing is not working. And bringing that offense back, and I know it better than anyone, other than Paul, I can duplicate that again and bring a winning brand of basketball to Loyola. I mean, I know I can do that within 2 years.
That actually brings up a question I was wondering about, though, because if we're talking about high school kids now, these kids were still 6, 7, 8 years away from being born when you guys were making a name for yourself. How do you keep Loyola's name alive? How do you keep Hank's memory alive among the younger generation? Is that something you think about and something you actively pursue?
Well, I don't pursue. Our legacies are already intact in a very humbling and extraordinary way. Not just by the success that our team had while Hank was alive, but the success that we had once he died. So our brand and this is archived forever. I mean, Hank still is part of history, leading the nation in scoring and rebounding in the same year. At the time, it's the second player ever to have done that. And when you talk about my legacy and my identity, I mean, I 35.3 a game. No one's put up those numbers in 70 years, and that's that's something I'm proud of. Also, I have the highest scoring, the NCAA scoring average, 38.9. I'm number 1. So our legacy and people who know their history, all they got to do is Google it or YouTube it, and it's right there for you to look at and learn. And so, in 30 for 30, over 300 million people have seen it all over the world. And so our name, the name that I've traveled to 40 countries, and it's not one time, even in Africa 3 times, there's not one time I've traveled abroad where people don't mention Hank Gather's name. They don't mention Loyola Marymount. They know exactly what city we're from. They can tell you how many points I've scored, Hank scored. They know all about our 100-point games every game, and they know about the left-hand free throw. And it's extraordinary. So legacy-wise and keeping our name out there, historically, that's already been done. I mean, we don't need to do anything to that. Everything else would just add to it. If I became a coach, for example, and started to win, then it would just shed more light on how successful we really were. And I hope Loyola starts to win soon because I'm just a diehard alumni. But wherever I go and I'm coaching the system, I know I'll win and I'll be able to recruit the players.
The legacy is set in stone, and as you mentioned, most people at this point know Hank from his death and from what you did afterward. But if you could give us a sense of what Hank was like as a person. You met him back in high school. What was he like? What kind of a player was he? What kind of a teammate was he?
Well, in the early days, Hank and I had major battles and major conflicts. She took wanting to share the ball. I was always a great scorer, and if if I got off to a real good start, Hank wanted to keep up. You know, and he would get a little frustrated, complain about getting the ball. And it was very distracting in our early days. Hank gathers the summer between his 10th and 11th grade year. I don't know what he was eating, but I can tell you one thing. He was living and breathing basketball. And overnight, he became the Hank Gather that everybody got a chance to know. Just overnight. And I was just overly impressed by that in just one summer for him to come back with that kind of skill set and that kind of determination, almost a different person. So Hank, off the court, was like being best friends. Hank's characteristics and character was like being best friends with Richard Pryor or David Chappelle. Can you imagine all the jokes that Richard Pryor told and David Chappelle did? All the practice, they probably practiced on their friends, their family. They probably talked about people like a dog. You know, Hank had the ability to make people laugh even when he's talking about you. He could be just talking about all your flaws or whatever, but he just had a skillful way to tell the same joke 100 times and still make you laugh because he just had that ability. And he also had the ability to make strangers feel comfortable around him. So he would have a group of 20 guys. They'll start talking about, and start going all around the circle. People who don't know him is looking like they're so mad at him, and they're laughing up until it's time for him to talk about them. And he would talk about them with no limitations, like he knew them for 20 years. So it was but they realized that Hank didn't have one of the screws in his hair was loose because they realized this is one crazy, fun guy, and it wasn't personal. It was just he'll do anything to make you laugh, and he was incredible at it. He could have easily had a career as a comedian, no question about it. But he was always the life of the party, just because of that characteristic. And Hank was, people really admire Hank, the athlete. I'm telling you, he was double and triple a better person than he was an athlete. He just was an amazing person, and he came from a family who still gathers, and is an extraordinary mother. And his mother is funnier than him. Is definitely funnier than him.
One of the tragedies, obviously, of losing someone so young is that we lose what they would grow up to be. What do you think Hank's future was ahead of him? I mean, obviously, he was headed to the NBA. How good do you think he could have been? Would he have been a broadcaster? Would he have been a Charles Barkley type afterward?
Now, I'm so glad you mentioned. First of all, he loved broadcasting, and he was actually extraordinary. We both had degrees in broadcasting, so we can do. He would have been a great broadcaster as well. Hank would have been. Barkley is a perfect example, and I would think more in his alignment on the rebounding and the effort side of things. He would have been extraordinary rebounding. He ran the court. He would have just been your nightmare on defense. Then scoring-wise, he would have been able to dominate the paint for his size, scoring taller, stronger players. As long as he went to the team, as long as he didn't have an experience like I did, where he went to the wrong team and wasn't used properly, he would have a very long and amazing career. The best game that sums up Hank Gathers is the LSU game. All the NBA teams were there. He was playing against 2 7-footers, Stanley Roberts and Shaquille O'Neal. And Hank got his first 7 shots blocked. And he ended the game with 48 points, 18 rebounds.
Jeez.
So if you want to know what kind of player Hank guys would have been in the NBA, if you could score 48 on Shaq, then, his star would have shined as bright as the team that would have, if he would have went to the right team, he would have been able to, to shine very bright.
That's great.
And had a long career. Charles Barkley is a great example because for his size, look at the great things he was able to do with his game in the NBA. By being with the right teams, by being used, maximizing, his abilities and playing them in the right position. So, I mean, that's a perfect example. He would have been that type of player.
When this was happening to you, you were 24 years old. You had to do your grieving in the public spotlight in front of all the cameras. You've had 25 years. 25 years later, what do you know now that you didn't know at 24?
Well, at age 23, I was 23 when Hank died. You're just playing the best. You're just playing, doing your best. You focus on graduating on time, and I did, and Hank would have graduated on time. You're focused on making it. In my case, making it to the NBA, and I did. So the last thing you think that you would have to deal with is the loss of someone like Hank. You never really get over it. You just learn how to cope with it. I think about Hank every day, about 5 times a day or more, on my own. And there's people that remember him. Fans come up to me every day, and somebody will say something about Hank or Loyola. Looking back at that, it's just a tough time to be 23 to have to cope with all of that. But we did it tremendously well. For me, I was only worried about the team, and leading our team and making sure Hank and I were co-captains. Hank was gone, so I had to lead. I became more vocal when I was more lead by example type of player. But we were together as a team. We just really understood that it was really when Hank died, everybody was praying for their love of Hank. I tried to tell them, look, we love Hank whether we win one game or not. Let's not pray for that. Let's do the best we can. Well, that went in one ear and out the other, because when that ball went up, there's not a person on LMU team that wasn't playing for their love of Hank. And specifically 2 guys that jumps out at me. Well, 3 guys, really. Chris Knight, Chris Scott, and Terrell Lowry. But let's take Chris Scott. Here's a freshman who, worked hard, but he just had very poor footwork. And he used to travel a lot, get excited a lot. When Hank Gathers died and he's playing for his love of Hank, all of a sudden he got Hank Gathers and Akeem Olajuwon's footwork. He's head pumping he's head pumping in the lane. He's offensive rebounding. He's passing in traffic. It's like, who the hell is this guy? In a great way. And that's the kind of spirit, and that's how proud I am of our whole team. We all felt that way. And everybody was not playing for self. They were playing for their love of Hank, and that's why we did so well. And we were the best, highest scoring, best conditioned team in the world that year, and that's why we did so well.
How good a shape are you in at this point? Could you still do 10 to 15 sprints up the court?
No. The answer would be no. I've just had some injuries from the wear and tear of basketball through the years, but I wouldn't trade anything because at the end of the day, I've been blessed to have an extraordinary life, great career in the game of basketball. It's been very good to me. I dedicated my life to it, and it's still bringing me great benefit to this day. I'm a member of the Retired Players Association. I'm also, I do a lot of events with the NBA, with some of the programs they have for retired players as well. So I'm very humbled that, that here the Retired Players Association, some of the greatest players voted me to be on the board of directors to serve them when I only played in the league for 3 years. So I just was humbled by that. So the game of basketball has really blessed me, and for any young kid, just dedicating your life to anything, you do it the right way. The game of basketball, Hank and I dedicated our lives to the game, and unfortunately, it took his life, but it's been still blessing my life to this day. Private lessons, things like that, and hopefully getting that, as I mentioned, get that Division I job, and showing people that this can be done again.
If we were trustees at Loyola Marymount, you would have our vote without a doubt.
I thank you so much, and I'm not giving up on Loyola, and I'm not giving up on being a Division I coach. And I also, obviously, you can't run this offense at the NBA, but anywhere else it will work.
I would love to see it. Thanks again for taking the time to speak with us, and best of luck.
Well, thank you on behalf of our university and the Gavis family and myself. Thank you for honoring Hank and thinking of us, but I'm really honoring Hank Gavis.
Take care.
Thanks, Bo.
Oh, you're welcome, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, that was a good one, and we are running super long now, so no more blathering from us.
Go
fill out your brackets.
We can't afford the bandwidth.
This exactly. Exactly. Our advertisers are going to be coming after us. Go fill out your brackets. Make sure to check the Dagger all tournament long. We will be there. We were writing with a great Dagger staff, keeping up with everything that's going on in college basketball. So, parting thoughts, Kevin. Got any more?
Not too many. We've got the grandstanding debates, a couple NCAA branded ones, best upset, best tournament team. I forgot everything we did. But,
we did it so long ago.
The first ones are out there, best upsets. I went with Arizona over Kansas in 1997 just because I wanted a different path. I didn't want to go like the Mercer over Duke path. I wanted to do it with a team where it was actually a big upset and a team that actually did something with it. And you went, of course, I think with NC State over Houston, which is, of course, an even bigger upset. But if you said NC State Houston, I couldn't say, oh, well, Villanova over Georgetown, because I felt like that was the same kind of upset. So I went, hey, that Sweet 16, the Thursday or Friday night upset that you really didn't see coming is always kind of interesting. Jay Williams missing 2 free throws in, I think, 2002. To lose to Indiana. Those kind of upsets, I think, are interesting.
Isn't that the best when when the games are going on, like tomorrow afternoon, it's going to happen. All of a sudden, there's going to be a rumble that somebody's going to be in trouble. And it's like, oh, no, get over to True TV.
A 15 or 14 seed winning, those are great. Those are fun to watch, especially over name programs. But then maybe that team loses the next game or even wins the next game and loses in the Sweet 16. And they're great, but really, what does it mean all in the end? So I like that 97 Arizona team because it was a great team. And Lute Olson won his championship. Miles Simon, Jason Terry, Mike Bibby. It was a fun team.
That was.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got that. We've got the grandstanding on iTunes. Check us out there. On Twitter at Jay Busbee and Kevin Kaduk, all the places to find us. Fill out your brackets. Pick Kentucky or pick somebody else if you're stupid. So have a good one, everybody.
Have fun, everyone.